Edgar Wright is known for his unique and visual style of editing, using clever cuts and transitions to create comedic elements in his films. But what is usually overlooked is his use of sound design to achieve this style. Edgar Wright uses sound design as another layer of detail in his jokes and narrative. He is known to plan everything meticulously out for the edit, and knows that what he films on set will be edited to the beat and will have a constant rhythmic flow. In this video essay, I will be looking at how Edgar Wright uses sound design in comedic editing, using examples from a 2007 film, Hot Fuzz. A technique that is used for both editing transitions and comedic effect is the build-up of a sound of tension with the deflected release. The effect that this has is to deliver the unexpected and therefore create a comedic moment. The following few scenes show examples of this technique, showing how the build-up of tension is released without any dramatic impact, creates this unexpected release of tension that we find comedic.
No, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to...
You want to take this higher?
Yes, I do.
You want me to bother the Chief Inspector with this?
Yes.
You want me to get the Chief Inspector to come all the way down here?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Kenneth!
Hello, Nicholas. How's it hand?
Can I get cell 4 open, please?
Danny, can you open 4?
He's gone.
Oh my God. Who's gone? You're a lot of junk.
I believe that this works because of how we are programmed to respond to this type of sound. We know that a rising tone means that something is coming, and from previous film experience we are expecting it to rise suddenly at the end to heighten the tension of the scene. But due to it just cutting out, we are almost surprised by the unexpected, and therefore made to laugh at the absurdity. Another technique used in the film is using diegetic sound to transition between scenes. These sounds are mainly used when transitioning from in and out of a building. Using the sound of a hinge to mask the cut and reduce the amount of time spent showing the characters change from one location to another, keeping up the pace of the film. The following clips show different uses of this technique and how it can be used to quickly transition between scenes and time.
I must say I was right.
Righty-ho-ho.
All of these clips use diegetic sound that is seen in the frame to transition to another. Using the sound of something in the frame rather than the non-diegetic sound keeps the immersion of the film and hides the cut between shots. The sound also helps the transition, as you can see the object that is making the noise in both of the shots, so the audience interprets the continuous sound as a continuous movement and masks the cut of the scene in their mind. There are times in the film where musical cues are used because the lyrics of the song signify something significant in the plot. There are a few subtle uses throughout the film. These create another layer of foreshadowing, as there is more detail in the audio than there are in the visuals, but you have to be paying attention to the lyrics of the song. This clip has the Village Green Preservation Society song playing. This song is playing as the protagonist enters the village centre for the first time, passing and being greeted by all the villagers that live there. The significance of the lyrics is the foreshadowing that it does. The people that the protagonist waves to are actually the antagonists of the film that you find out later, and the lyrics of the song speak about the preservation of the village, which is the sole intention of the antagonist of the film.
We are the Village Green Preservation Society.
Morning, Sergeant.
God save the duck for the village.
Morning, Sergeant.
We are the best prepared.
In these clips you can faintly hear the songs playing on the radio in the car of the character, Mr. Skinner, one of the main antagonists. The songs playing have lyrics that link back to the murder scenes that he is appearing at. This musical cue is foreshadowing events later in the film through the use of sound, but again, you have to be listening out for them.
Mr. Skinner, do you mind telling me how you know the identity of the persons involved?
You know how it is. News travels fast.
A love struck Romeo, sing the streets of fairy name.
Fire to destroy all you've done.
Using a match cut can work to transition between scenes by having the frame match up with another shot, but using a match cut with a matching sound effect of both scenes creates an even smoother transition. The use of a diegetic sound for the movement between scenes really helps sell the continuous movement of the two separate characters. In the following scene, the two sounds of the two characters in two separate scenes is synced up to hide a cut.
Did you move?
This shot is so well synced that it creates the illusion of continuous movement between the two scenes. The sound of the man falling to the ground unconscious and the sound of the protagonist sitting down are similar enough to transition between, and therefore allow for the movement of the characters to be synced up with the visuals and audio. Another variation of this effect is used later in the scene to transition between a living room and a house blowing up. Using a button press or a remote to cut to the destruction of a house is done for comedic effect.
This is about to go off.
This transition is done to quickly get from one scene to the next and have the comedic effect of making it seem like the button press of the remote was the cause of the house to explode. The jarring nature of a sudden sound can be implemented to draw the audience's attention to a certain action in the frame, or for the comedic effect that it has. A way that Edgar Wright has implemented this is by having a jump scare of something that is non-threatening. This is a juxtaposition on known tropes, so when it occurs we are entertained by the surprise.
And that's what the team is going to make of this.
In general, the inclusion of a sudden sound effect works to create comedic effect in different ways. Some instances, just to have the sound be overly dramatic for the action that it's synced with, the jarring nature of the sound effect itself for juxtaposition, or just simply having the sound effect itself be amusing. The way that this technique works is by having the sound or music start as non-diegetic and transition into a diegetic sound as the scene transitions, mainly used for entering buildings. Starting the scene outside is non-diegetic music and turning into diegetic music when entering the pub.
Oh, 777. Mr. Skinner.
Pint of lager, please, Mary.
Do are they? Yeah, I mean, you got a church fate to look after.
No, I have not!
Actually,
This technique works because the music is transitioning with the visual transition, giving the illusion that we are following the main character into this pub, helping the audience identify with him as the protagonist. The other effect is of the rewind sound effect. The effect seems like a non-diegetic effect, but is actually diegetic as the surveillance station makes the rewind sound effect earlier in the scene. Using this has the effect of going back on his statement as he is being told he is doing what he just said he was not. Having the background music suddenly cut from a scene really emphasises the sounds that are still present. This is done for the comedic effect of creating an awkward scene for the characters and therefore a comedic scene for the audience. The music in the scene is there to create tension or action pace that is then suddenly cut out to show something that contrasts that, such as the scene where the protagonist is jumping fences flawlessly with the music, and as the secondary character attempts it, the music cuts out, he fails and breaks through the fence.
What?
Super cop. Meet the cop that can't be stopped.
This technique of cutting out the sound uses the contrast of the silence to juxtapose the tense action of the scene with the quiet, awkward nature of another. It is this contrast where we get the amusing outcome. Another example of this technique is to change location and tone. The following scene is a chase scene that is split midway for discovery of clues. The pace and tone need to be changed, so the music changes with the actions of the character.
gypsy scum travels.
This scene is changed for the use of music being dropped, as the character is literally dropped out of the frame. The high tense music is cut, and the transition between is masked by the use of diegetic Foley sound of the character falling through the ground. This change in music tells the audience that the character is no longer being chased and that there is more time to concentrate on the things around them. The chase is then brought back where it left off as he opens the gate, and the music comes back with the realization that the antagonists are still after him. One of Edgar Wright's most signature styles is the use of quick montage-style cut sequences. They usually contain quick cuts, fast zooms, and heightened diegetic sounds. These are effective to get a lot of information across to the audience as fast as possible and as entertainingly as possible. The use of sound makes the cutscene quicker and richer, as everything being done sounds like it's being done faster. An example of this is when the protagonist is gearing up for the final firefight in the film. The film needs to get across the point that he's doing this, going back to the police station and gearing up with all the weapons that he confiscated earlier in the film.
Fire up the roof.
That was brilliant.
Edgar Wright's unique style of editing means that he is able to get across a great deal of information in a short space of time. From the scene we see how the character has changed and how he has now got the tools he needs to win. The use of sound here is to emphasise that point. The sound of all the equipment being equipped lets you hear the progression of all the amount that he is getting. The rate and length of the sounds is also important. They are all very fast and quick to replicate the narrative and the visuals that he is doing all this very quickly to get prepared in time. As well as the sound effects, the backing music rises as he is getting ready and hits the crescendo as he is finished gearing up, giving the effect that the character is now ready for his task. In conclusion, I believe that Edgar Wright's use of sound design is such a massive part of what makes his film so successful. Without the clever use of sound and music, the overall impact would be lost. The sound not only helps the edit, but in some instances is what forms the edit, and some of the jokes in the film are told entirely through the use of sound. Overall, I believe that Edgar Wright's use of sound design is a great example of how sound can be used to tell its own narrative and its own jokes within a film.
Any questions?
Hey.
Yes.
Is it true that there is a place in a man's head that if you shoot it, it will blow up?